On December 3, 2025, Vladimir Putin appeared on national television with a smirk, declaring that Ukraine had 10 days left before total collapse. He was dead wrong. It is now 48 hours later, 01:17 a.m., deep in the frozen heart of Perm Oblast, a staggering 1,200 miles from the Ukrainian border. A black shadow measuring 23 feet long with a massive 39-foot wingspan is skimming just 80 feet above the snow-covered taiga at 125 miles per hour. The Russian night watchmen at the secret facility below are pouring coffee, completely unaware that a flying fuel air bomb is closing in. This is the Liutyi, Ukraine's newest long-range suicide drone. It isn't carrying cameras or sensors for reconnaissance. Its belly is packed with a terrifying cocktail of 550 pounds of high explosives and 40 gallons of modern napalm. The total cost of this delivery is roughly $420,000, about the price of a modest home in Texas. Yet, the target in its crosshairs is the only factory on Earth currently assembling the T-95 super tank. In exactly 19 minutes, a $3 billion weapons program and the entire future of Russian armor are going to vanish in a fireball, proving that while Putin counts the days, Ukraine is making every second count. At 01:25 a.m., the vast taiga of Perm Oblast sits frozen under a crushing temperature of -33 degrees Fahrenheit. Yet, the lone Liutyi drone fights through the blinding blizzard at just 80 feet above the tree line, its Austrian-made Rotax engine screaming against the howling wind. It is not relying on stealth coating or radar-absorbent materials to survive deep inside Russian airspace. It is hiding in plain sight using a deception as bold as it is simple. Ukrainian engineers have rigged the fuselage with a standard array of civilian navigation lights, steady green on the right wingtip, red on the left, and a bright white strobe pulsing rhythmically on the tail. To any observer looking up from the ground, the profile matches a lost cargo plane fighting the storm. It is the aerial equivalent of putting on a UPS uniform to rob a bank. Inside the Russian Air Defense Command Post, the deception locks in with terrifying perfection. The massive 91N6E Big Bird acquisition radar sweeps the sector and paints a large, slow-moving blip on the main console. The automated identification system analyzes the speed, altitude, and blinking light pattern, instantly flagging the contact as civilian traffic and 26 transport. The Russian shift commander, fighting the heavy weight of sleep deprivation, glances at the screen. He sees a slow mover, likely some poor Yandex logistics pilot trying to navigate the blizzard to deliver holiday packages. He yawns, stretches his stiff arms, and manually toggles the threat warning to ignore. He turns back to his phone to scroll through Telegram channels, completely ignoring the fact that the mailman is carrying 40 gallons of thickened napalm and closing the distance at 180 feet per second, 21 miles to target. At 01:28 a.m., 40 miles west of the Liutyi's flight path, a barrage of heavy thermal decoys and radar-reflecting flares detonates in the night sky. This is a saturation trap designed to trigger the factory's automated defenses. The Pantsir S1M guarding the main gate screams awake, its threat logic algorithms, overwhelmed by the sudden bloom of 40 distinct high-speed thermal signatures, classify the event as a massive inbound swarm attack. In a blind electronic panic, the system dumps its entire magazine. The cannons roar and missiles streak upward, firing 56 interceptors in a manic 38-second burst. The launch tubes glow cherry red against the snow, then click empty. The Pantsir has just expended $5 million of ammunition to kill a cloud of magnesium sparks. It is now a 30-ton paperweight, its crew screaming for a reload that will take 10 minutes. This is the exact window the Liutyi was waiting for. It slips past the smoking Pantsir without flinching, but the second layer of defense, a Tor M2 missile system, is not fooled by the light show. Its tracking radar ignores the decoys and locks onto the drone's heavy fuselage in a terrifying 0.7 seconds. The first 9M331 missile leaps from the vertical canister, accelerating to Mach 2.5 instantly. In the Kharkiv command bunker, the Ukrainian pilot reacts on pure instinct, jamming the stick forward. The Liutyi drops from 80 feet to a suicidal 18 feet, diving below the tree line. The Russian missile screams overhead, missing by just 40 feet and detonating harmlessly against a pine tree. The bunker is freezing, barely 43 degrees Fahrenheit, but sweat is pouring down the pilot's temples, soaking his collar. His knuckles are white as bone as he fights the controls. The Tor M2 fires again. This time, the angle is deadlier. The pilot slams the stick to the right, forcing the heavy drone into a violent 73-degree bank. The Rotax engine screams at 118% rated power, the propeller clawing at the thin, freezing air. The missile passes so close that its shockwave rattles the drone's airframe, but the Liutyi stabilizes, shaving the tops of the snow-covered pines as it races toward the dead zone. At 01:30 a.m., the Russian defense plays its final, desperate card. The Krasuka-4 electronic warfare complex, a system powerful enough to blind AWACS aircraft and burn out low-orbit satellite sensors, screams to maximum output. It floods the entire Perm basin with a tsunami of broadband jamming noise. In the Kharkiv command bunker, the pilot's monitors dissolve into a blizzard of aggressive white static. The telemetry numbers freeze. The video feed dies. The control stick goes dead in his hands. To a standard Predator or Reaper, this is a digital lobotomy. The moment the machine gets confused, circles endlessly and crashes. But the Liutyi does not nosedive. It doesn't even waver. Instead, it activates its internal optical terrain matching system. The onboard AI scans the snowy landscape below, comparing the geometry of the roads and buildings against a preloaded 3D map stored in its hard drive. It essentially looks at the ground and navigates by sight, immune to jamming because you cannot jam a camera's ability to see shapes. In the bunker, the operator slowly releases the useless joystick. His chest is heaving under his heavy jacket. He wipes a layer of cold sweat from his forehead with a sleeve that is already soaking wet. He is no longer a pilot. He is just a spectator watching a bullet he already fired. 4 miles to target. The Liutyi bursts out of the taiga forest cover and levels out, its optical sensors locking onto the sharp rectangular outline of the main assembly hall. It is now deaf, dumb, and blind to the Russian electronic assault, flying purely on mathematics and momentum. At 01:31 a.m., the Liutyi screams out of the dense taiga cover and barrels into the open clearing of the industrial zone. It is no longer flying, it is fighting a violent mechanical seizure. The physical stress on the composite airframe has crossed the red line into catastrophic failure territory. A layer of clear hard ice, 3 millimeters thick, has accumulated on the leading edges of the propeller blades. At 2400 RPM, this imbalance acts like a sledgehammer, shaking the fuselage with such violence that the carbon fiber skin is beginning to delaminate. The onboard GoPro camera is vibrating so intensely that the digital image stabilization has failed, turning the world into a blur of gray snow and orange sodium streetlights. The cold is winning the war against the machine. The lithium polymer battery cells, exposed to the 120 mph wind chill of -35 degrees, are freezing solid. The electrolyte fluid inside them has turned to sludge, unable to deliver the massive amperage needed for this final full-throttle sprint. The power management system is hemorrhaging energy, screaming critical warnings that flash across the internal logic logs. 11% charge, dropping to 8%, then 5%. The voltage is plummeting. The internal temperature sensor in the battery bay flashes a lethal warning, -24 degrees Celsius. The Liutyi is dying. It is essentially a glider with a heart attack, possessing exactly 18 seconds of powered flight before the prop stops and it falls out of the sky as 1,100 pounds of dead weight. 11 seconds to impact. Through the ice-crusted lens, the AI target recognition system locks onto the prize. The main assembly hall isn't a bunker. It's a modern glass-roofed structure designed for natural light, a fatal architectural arrogance. Through the illuminated skylights, the target is laid out like a buffet. The optical sensors clearly identify the shapes. 7 fully completed T-95 main battle tanks, their turrets covered in protective tarps, and 19 bare hulls sitting on the assembly line in various stages of construction. The entire future of Russia's heavy armored division is sitting there, warm and exposed, like model cars in a display case. In the Kharkiv bunker, the operator leans his head back, his neck muscles straining like steel cables. His eyes are wide, unblinking, bloodshot from strain, staring at the static-filled screen that offers no control, only the ghost of a connection. The tension in the room is suffocating, a physical weight that presses on the chest. Despite the bunker being chilled to 43 degrees, his body is radiating heat. A single heavy bead of sweat rolls slowly down his forehead, traces the bridge of his nose, hangs for a fraction of a second, and then falls. It lands with a tiny silent tap on the enter key of his keyboard. the final unconscious punctuation to a mission that has now left human hands entirely. At 01:31 a.m., the Liutyi drone does not knock. It crashes through the corrugated steel roof of the electrostatic paint storage facility at 125 miles per hour, delivering its final message with catastrophic force. The 550 pounds of high explosives detonate instantly, but the blast itself is merely the match. The real weapon is the chemistry. The explosion ruptures industrial tanks holding 400 gallons of highly volatile acetone and paint thinners, mixing them with the drone's own payload of thickened napalm. In a fraction of a second, the facility is consumed by a violet-white pillar of liquid fire that punches back out through the roof hole like a skyscraper-sized blowtorch. The fire doesn't just burn, it hunts. Driven by the massive thermal draft, the inferno races down the ventilation tunnels connecting the paint shop to the adjacent testing bunker. Inside that reinforced concrete tomb sits the facility's dirty secret: 1,200 tons of experimental solid rocket propellant and high-grade jet fuel intended for the T-95's turbine engines. The temperature inside the bunker spikes from 60 degrees to 3,000 degrees in 4 seconds. The automated fire suppression system tries to activate, but the water turns to steam before it even leaves the nozzles. Critical mass is reached. Then, the Earth shakes. This is no longer a conventional explosion. It is a seismic event with a yield estimated at 1.9 kilotons, roughly 10% of the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The GoPro camera on the final drone transmits one single frame of blinding white static, followed by a frame of pure orange hell, and then eternal darkness. A shockwave of compressed air moving at Mach 3 expands outward in a perfect crushing sphere. 1.2 miles away, the 30-ton Pantsir S-1M vehicle, the one that had fired 56 missiles at empty air, is hit broadside by the invisible wall. The massive machine is lifted off its tracks, rolled over 3 times like a discarded toy car, and slammed into a snowbank, its radar dish crushed flat against the frozen mud. In a radius of 7 miles, the heavy Siberian snow doesn't melt. It sublimates instantly into a massive cloud of superheated steam, shrouding the valley in a white fog. Where the factory once stood, the geography of Perm has been rewritten. A crater 70 feet deep and 350 feet wide now dominates the landscape, swallowing the Empire's ambition whole. Inside that smoking pit, the 7 completed T-95 Black Eagle tanks, the superweapons Putin promised would roll into Kiev by spring, have ceased to exist as machines. The intense heat of the thermobaric event has liquefied their composite armor, turning them into unrecognizable puddles of cooling molten slag mixed with twisted rebar. The 19 unfinished hulls on the assembly line have simply been vaporized into metallic dust. High above the atmosphere, a US keyhole spy satellite adjusts its optics to confirm the catastrophe. Its thermal sensors capture a mushroom cloud rising 12,000 feet into the stratosphere, glowing ominously against the frozen Russian night. This strike is the brutal culmination of a strategic campaign that has systematically dismantled Russia's safe zones. First, they gutted the Omsk refineries to starve the mechanized divisions of fuel. Then they hammered the Engels bomber base, forcing the nuclear-capable Tu-95 fleet to flee to the Arctic. Now, they have struck the industrial womb itself. For centuries, Moscow relied on strategic depth, the military doctrine that you can simply hide your vital factories behind thousands of miles of snow, safe from invaders like Napoleon or Hitler. Tonight, that doctrine is dead. By moving the T-95 production line to Perm, fallen 200 miles from the front, the Kremlin believed they were banking their most valuable assets in an impenetrable vault. Ukraine just proved that the vault has a screen door. By erasing this single facility, they haven't just destroyed a building, they have effectively deleted the entire T-95 program from the server. The tooling is gone, the blueprints are ash, and the specialized workforce is buried. It will take Russia a decade to rebuild what was lost in 9 seconds. Near the wreckage of the overturned Pantsir, a surviving Russian soldier crawls out of the smoking hatch. His face is blackened with soot, his uniform torn to shreds. He stumbles to his knees in the mud that was once permafrost, his eyes wide and staring blankly at the towering mushroom cloud above him. In his hand, he is still gripping the severed cord of his headset, trying to report a target that no longer matters to a headquarters that no longer exists. Putin said Ukraine was running out of ammunition. Turns out they were just saving the good stuff for Perm. Glory to the nerds, glory to Ukraine.